can handle concurrent access. It can handle your data duplicacy. Means it can help us to reduce the redundancy. So database management system is a complete package. It is a software in which we create the databases. So database means it is a collection of related data which has some implicit properties. And database management system, again, it is a software which facilitates us to design, create, okay, databases. So the overall idea is that we are collecting the data, and the sole purpose to collect the data because we want to use this data in the future, or we want to present a view of that data to our users. Okay. So when we are dealing with the data, means when we are dealing with the database management system, it is not possible that each and every person is a technocrat who is dealing with it. For example, if you go to your banking institution for just depositing some amount, तो आप क्या करते हैं वहाँ पे clerical staff है, he is sitting there, आप कहते हैं सर ठीक है, this is the amount 1 lakh I want to deposit in my account. So that person is not a technocrat person. Okay, that person is a, you can say that he is a naive person, so he does not know what is the complexity behind that system. He knows only कि ठीक है एक user interface होगा, there I will insert some account number, the name of the account holder and other identification information like that and the amount, and I will click on the submit button and it will be updated in the database. Okay, so it means whenever we work with the database, it is you can say that it is implicit that your system should hide certain details of how and the data are stored and the maintained. Okay, and the second important why we are saying that hiding the certain details of how the data is stored and the maintained, because we have a different categories of the users. Okay, even we have the different categories of the users. So one of those we can term him as a database administrator who has the central control on the database. उसका क्या रहेगा, central control रहेगा. So he is authorized to perform some modifications in the databases, but every user is not allowed. Every user is not allowed to perform that. Even when we are talking about the external users who are interacting with the databases, we can define the rules. We can say, okay, you can view only this part of the database. You can't edit in that. We can allow some users to insert the data in the databases. So we need to hide the details at some levels. Okay, तो हम कह देते हैं यार this is the data abstraction. This is the data abstraction. So when we talk about the view of the data in the database, so we say that okay, there are two important concepts. One is the data abstraction and second one is the instance and schema. So data abstraction means hiding the level of implementation, है ना. हम हमेशा ये कहते हैं कि यार this is the abstract way. I am just giving you, I'm telling you this is the input and you will get the output, but the inner detail how it is going to be converted or you are implementing or you are getting output from the input, this detail is hidden. This is a black box simply. Okay, तो आपको क्या पता होना चाहिए कि हाउ टू इंटरेक्ट बाय यूजिंग द यूजर इंटरफेस, बट आप जो इनर पार्ट है, जो प्रोसेसिंग पार्ट है, यू आर नॉट रिवीलिंग दैट. ओके, इन विच टेबल इट इज गोइंग, इन विच टेबल you are storing the data, what is the name of that table, how many columns are there. So you are hiding such information from the end user. Okay, so we say that okay, this is a database data abstraction. Okay, so now a term comes in the scenario that is a data model. Means when we are talking about the data abstraction, so how we will achieve this abstraction, how we will achieve this abstraction. So to achieve this abstraction, there is a way, that is a data model. That is a data model. So data model is basically a collection of concepts. Data model is a collection of concepts that can be used to describe the structure of the database. That can be used to describe the structure of the database. Now this is very important point कि हम जब structure की बात कर रहे हैं, so what do we mean by this structure? हमने कहा structure of the database. So what do we mean by this structure of the database? Structure of the database means we are talking about the data types. We are talking about the relationship between the data. We are talking about the constraints that are applied on the data. Okay, so it collectively we are calling it as a structure. Collectively we are calling it as a structure. So how will you describe the data types, relationships, and the constraints? By using a model, by using some set of rules, by using a collection of concepts. Okay, so by using a data model, you will be achieve the abstraction concept. Is it clear? So these models include basic operations for specifying retrieval and updates on the databases. So we will go through, we have the different types of the model, ER model, relational model. These two models are prime focus in this syllabus. And other than these models, we have object-oriented model, we have object-relational models, even unstructured. We have a model to store the unstructured data. But for this syllabus, for this subject, we are focusing on the ER model and the relational model. We will go through each and every one. Okay. So data abstraction, again, it can be done at three levels. The first one is the physical level. This is then the logical level, and this is the view level. Okay. So what do we mean by the physical, logical, and the view level? Try to understand a user is sitting here. Let's suppose there are n users. Okay, there are n users. Now you don't want to give the complete access for the database. You want to show only the part of the database, or you want to create a view of a certain part of the database so that they cannot interact with the whole database, because we are restricting. So what we can do here, so somewhat view is also providing the security here. So what we are doing here, we are just creating the views for the individual users. Okay, I am saying that, for example, I'm saying that, okay, for user 1 there is view 1, for user 2 there is view 2, similarly for user n there are view n. Okay, so user 1 can interact with only this view. Okay, he can view the data of this portion only. He won't be able to see the data portion of view 2 to view n, because we are not allowing to interact with these views. So I think you have understand the view means what data you want to show to the user. I'm just putting a reverse engineering. When you will go through some textbooks, you will start from the physical view, then the logical view, then the view level. Okay, I'm just putting a reverse engineering to understand this concept, that you are a user and you want to interact with the database. It may possible that you are able to interact with only a portion of the database, not all the whole database. So that portion which I'm creating for you, that is a view. That is a view of database. So you are interacting with it. So this view is solely what we are saying, that what data I want to show the data only, what data is there. Okay, so we are saying, okay, what data is there, but how this data was stored, what data was stored, that is at logical level. ठीक है, आपको ये पता चल गया कि ठीक है यार ये डेटा क्या है, what is this. ओके, अब मैं कहता हूँ यार कौन सी टेबल्स में स्टोर है, क्या डेटा स्टोर है ना. सो इट मींस वी आर गोइंग बिलो वन लेवल इन द हायरार्की. हम और थोड़ा स्पेसिफिक होते जा रहे हैं. हमें पता था डेटा क्या था, हमने उसको देखा, अब हम ये पता लगाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं यार डेटाबेस में कौन कौन सी टेबल्स के अंदर वो स्टोर है, क्या है. सो दैट इज अ लॉजिकल लेवल. देन what and how data means, here you are talking about only display, here you are talking about only display, I can concrete it. And here you are talking about the what data and how data is stored at the logical level. But when you will move one more level down, it means what? Still you are aware about you have the display of the data, you know what data is there, how the data was stored, but you are not aware about the structure of the database. Basically the actual tables, you are not working with the actual table, you are not allowed to work with the tables, you cannot modify that, means you cannot add a column, you cannot drop a column, you cannot create a new database, you cannot drop a database, because you are not at a physical level, you are at only logical level, you are working with the data, you are not actually working with the database. So there are three portions, or there are three levels. अब हम अब हम bottom to top चलते हैं कि अगर मैं बात कर रहा हूं कि ओके आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द डेटा, इट मींस आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट द फिजिकल लेवल, so the lowest level abstraction describe how the data are actually stored, the physical level describe complex level data structures and the details. Okay, then coming to the logical level, what data are stored in the database and what relationship exists among those data. Okay. And the view level is what? View level is the highest level of the abstraction that describes only part of the entire database. Okay, so it will simplify your interaction with the system. Okay, you can create number of the views for the same database. Why we are doing this? Because we know that many of the users of the database system do not need all variety of information stored in the large database. They need to access only a part of the database. So that is your view level. So again, coming to this point, क्या समझा हमने? Physical level means we are just talking about the structure of the database itself, means how we are storing the data, what tables are there, how many columns are there. Okay, you are dealing with the structure of the database itself. But at the upper layer, you are dealing with the data only. You are not dealing with the structure of the database. You are dealing with the data only, that what data is stored in the database, what are the relationships between the database data, and at the view level, only a portion of the database is visible to you, that is available to you for the interaction purpose. So these are the three levels of the abstractions. So जैसे अगर आप view level पे काम कर रहे हो, you are working at a view level, it means you don't know what data is there, what is the relationship between the data, you don't know what are the tables are there, how the data is being going to inserted in that. But when you are at the logical level, there is only one level of abstraction. You know, okay, what views are there, you know, okay, what type of the data, what data you are going to store, okay, and what is the relationship between the data. But when you are at the physical level, means at the lowest level of this abstraction, it means you have complete detail of your database. Okay, you know how many views, you know what data, you know what is the structure of the database. So these are the three levels of the abstractions. Okay, now coming to the instances and the schema, these are two important terms. Please इनको आप memorize ही कर लें. Instance का मतलब क्या होता है कि if at a point of time I'm asking, okay, what is the data is in the database, so that complete snapshot of that database is called as an instance at a particular instance of a time. So for example, I'm asking right now, so this is okay, this is the instance of the database, but if I'm asking after 1 hour, instance may change because the point of the time has changed. So the database change over time as information is inserted and deleted. So the collection of information stored in the database at a particular moment is called the instance of the database. एक पर्टिकुलर टाइम पे उस डेटाबेस में क्या डेटा अवेलेबल है वो उसका इंस्टेंस कहलाएगा सिंपली. ठीक है. नाउ कमिंग टू द स्कीमा. स्कीमा का मतलब क्या है? द ओवरऑल डिजाइन ऑफ द डेटाबेस. दिस इज द टेक्निकल टर्म स्कीमा. If I am saying that schema, it means I am talking about the overall design of the database. Is that clear? Okay. So overall design of the database is called schema. Okay. And this does not change frequently. It changes infrequently. ठीक है, आप आज एक database बना रहे हैं, you have created some tables according to the requirement of your client, you have designed everything. Okay, there are very less chances, means after a long time it may possible that your client is putting some new requirements there and you are changing the design of your database. So it is infrequent. So overall design of the database is called the database schema. Is that clear? बताइए यहाँ तक क्लियर है? थ्री लेवल्स ऑफ एब्स्ट्रैक्शंस, फिजिकल, लॉजिकल, व्यू. फिजिकल में क्या होगा हमारा? हाउ द डेटा इज स्टोर्ड, मींस यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्ट्रक्चर. लॉजिकल का मतलब क्या होगा? व्हाट डेटा इज स्टोर्ड एंड व्हाट इज द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन दैट. एंड व्यू का मतलब क्या होगा? यू आर ओनली गिविंग or you are only providing a portion of the database, not whole information to a particular user. So that is a view. You can create number of views. Okay, so indirectly it is providing the security capability also. Then two terms are there, instances and schema. What is instance? Instance क्या होगा? Instance क्या होगा?
So the data that is stored in the database at a particular moment of time.
बिल्कुल, at a particular moment the whole information in the database is called as instance of that database. And schema is what? This is again an important term क्योंकि आगे हम schema बहुत बात करेंगे. Schema is overall design of the database. Whenever I will use the word schema, it means I am talking about the design of the database. Okay. Now according to abstractions, now I can say, okay, I have three types of the schemas. Okay, according to the level of the abstractions: physical schema, logical schema and sub schemas or view schemas. So physical schemas क्या करेगा? We are talking about the design. Schema word का मतलब पता होना चाहिए. We are talking about the design. Now we are saying physical schema. So physical level पे जो database का design है वो क्या होगा? Physical schema. So physical schema describes database design at physical level. Database design at physical level. Then coming to the logical schema. Logical schema describes database design at लॉजिकल लेवल, डिजाइन एट लॉजिकल लेवल, डिजाइन एट फिजिकल लेवल, है ना। तो फिजिकल स्कीमा क्या हुआ, डिजाइन एट फिजिकल लेवल, लॉजिकल स्कीमा क्या हुआ, डिजाइन एट लॉजिकल लेवल, ठीक है। एंड एट व्यू लेवल we can have several schema because we can have several views. So if we have 3 views, so it means I have 3 view schemas. Okay, so we call it as a sub schemas also.
So
हाँ बोलो बेटा।
ये जो फिजिकल स्कीमा है मतलब ये स्ट्रक्चर बताएगा डेटाबेस का, ये उसको लाइक उसी का डिजाइन जो है वो हमको
उसके
डिस्क्राइब
डिजाइन
करेगा।
की बात कर रहे हैं हम बिल्कुल, हम उसके डिजाइन की बात कर रहे हैं, हम उसके डिजाइन की बात कर रहे हैं। बट जब हम लॉजिकल स्कीमा पे आ रहे हैं तो हम डेटा के डिजाइन की मीन्स हम डेटा का क्या रिलेशनशिप है, डेटा टाइप्स क्या, हम उसकी बात कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। बट
Yes, sir.
वी आर जस्ट पुटिंग अ वर्ड स्कीमा मींस वी आर इंक्लूडिंग द डिजाइन वर्ड इन दिस, कि ठीक है डिजाइनिंग तो आपको तीनों लेवल्स पे करनी पड़ेगी ना। आप कह रहे हैं कि ठीक है डिजाइनिंग का मतलब क्या, आपने कहा यार मैं एक डेटाबेस बना रहा हूँ, तो ठीक है कौन कौन सी टेबल्स बनेंगी, उनमें कितने कॉलम्स होंगे, आपने ये एक डिजाइन किया। उसके बाद नेक्स्ट लेवल पे आप क्या डिजाइन करेंगे, कौन सी टेबल्स आपस में इंटर रिलेटेड है, अगर आप उनका रिलेशनशिप बना रहे हैं तो वो रिलेशनशिप किस टाइप का है, ठीक है। उस रिलेशनशिप को फ्लोर पे लाने के लिए आपको कौन से कॉलम्स कॉमन रखने पड़ेंगे, या फिर आपको एक सेपरेट टेबल बनानी पड़ेगी क्या रिलेशनशिप की। सो उसमें जो डेटा जा रहा है वो कौन कौन सा डेटा है। फिर आप एक लेवल और ऊपर चले जाते हैं कि आपके पास ठीक है पूरी मान लीजिए पूरा एक टेबल है जिसमें 10 कॉलम्स है, बट यू वांट टू ओनली शो द 5 कॉलम्स टू यूजर, सो अगेन दिस इज अ डिजाइन which you are presenting to the user. So every time you are talking about the design at each and every level of the abstraction, that's why we are calling it as a physical schema, logical schema and sub schemas. एक और मैं आपको बात बताता हूँ यहाँ पे जैसे अगर आप कोर्थ की बात करेंगे तो कोर्थ इज टॉकिंग इन टर्म्स ऑफ द एब्स्ट्रक्शंस, कोर्थ इज टॉकिंग इन द टर्म्स ऑफ द एब्स्ट्रक्शन, कॉन्सेप्ट इज सेम, मैंने पहले भी कहा था कॉन्सेप्ट सेम होता है, इट डिपेंड्स ऑन द राइटिंग स्टाइल ऑफ द ऑथर। अगर आप नवाथे पे जाएंगे तो वो आपको फिजिकल के लिए इंटरनल वर्ड यूज करेगा, internal level, logical level and the view level. So don't get confused if you find somewhere these type of the words, but the concept is same, there are only 3 levels of the abstractions. Is it clear? ठीक है।
Yes, sir.
Now coming to the data models, as I told you that data model is used to describe the structure. Structure means data type क्या होगा, constraint क्या होंगे, है ना। So we can describe the structure and we can achieve the abstraction by using the data models, ठीक है। अब देखिए डेटा मॉडल्स में मैंने कहा आपके पास एंटिटी रिलेशनल मॉडल है, ईआर मॉडल है, रिलेशनल मॉडल है, ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड मॉडल है, ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेशनल मॉडल है, अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड डेटा मॉडल है। बट हमारे सिलेबस में हम जो फोकस करेंगे वो हमारा ईआर मॉडल और रिलेशनल मॉडल होगा, इसको हम डिटेल्ड स्टडी करेंगे, ठीक है। वी विल ड्रॉ सम ईआर डायग्राम फॉर द गिवन प्रॉब्लम्स, वी विल लर्न हाउ टू ड्रॉ इट, हाउ टू डिजाइन अ ईआर डायग्राम, ठीक है ना। सो अभी जस्ट एक इंट्रोडक्टरी पार्ट के लिए मैं आपको बता देता हूं कि ईआर मॉडल क्या है, रिलेशनल मॉडल क्या है, ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड क्या है, ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेशनल क्या है, अनस्ट्रक्चर्ड क्या है। इनका डिटेल्ड ईआर और रिलेशनल का हम जैसे जैसे आगे चलेंगे ना सिलेबस में कंप्लीट कवर होगा। सो एंटिटी रिलेशनशिप डेटा मॉडल, ठीक है। ईआर मॉडल इज एंटिटी रिलेशनशिप डेटा मॉडल, ठीक है। It is based on the perception of real world. So what do you mean by the real world? Okay, like try to understand. If I talk about you, listen me very carefully. अभी मैं यहाँ से कुछ एक important concept बताने जा रहा हूँ, तो उस पर आपका बहुत सारा जो आगे का पार्ट जो है ना वो easy हो जाएगा जैसे जैसे हम ER और relational में enter होंगे। For example, I am talking about you, ठीक है। मैंने किसी भी एक स्टूडेंट का पिक कर लिया like अर्जुन, ठीक है। I am saying that the registration ID of the Arjuna is, for example, 209103. Okay. So this is the registration ID. Now I say, okay, what is the name of the student? I say, okay, it is Arjun. Okay. Let's suppose I am talking about the marks. He scored 32. So this is one collection. This is one record. अगर हम देखते हैं, हमने आज तक जो एक्सेल के साथ काम किया आप लोगों ने, या फिर आप जब भी डेटा के साथ काम करते हैं, हम कहते हैं ओके दिस इज अ सिंगल रिकॉर्ड, ठीक है। रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर है, नेम और मार्क्स है, ठीक है। बट दिस इज एन एंटिटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ एंटिटी रिलेशनशिप डायग्राम। दिस इज एन एंटिटी बिकॉज it is a real world object we are talking about, so we are percepting it. So it is an entity which has 3 attributes. Now try to understand, it is an entity which has 3 attributes. registration number, name, and the marks. Okay, and the data type of the registration number is integer, the data type of the name is character, and the data type of the marks is integer. Have you understood this point? Now, what am I doing here? I am saying, okay, I have one more student. His name is Akshita, and his registration number is 209103 and marks is 40. Okay, again, this is an entity. Again, this is an entity. 209103. This is a registration number. This is the name of Akshita, and this is the marks 40. So it is again an entity which has three attributes: registration number, name, and the marks. Now, what is the similarity between this entity 1? If I call it entity 1, if I call it entity 2, what is the similarity between these two? One, the both entities have same number of attributes, 3. Okay, same number and same type. Registration number, name, and marks. This entity 2 has again registration number, name, and marks, and data type are same. For the registration here it is integer, for the registration here it is integer. For the name it is character, for the name it is again character, for the marks it is integer, for the marks it is integer. So it means I can collect it both. I can collect both entities and I can create a set. So this is a mathematics simply. This is a simple mathematics. These are the similar of type, so I will collect those and I will create a set. I will create a set. So I can say, okay, I have a set, that is the name of the set as a student, and it has three attributes: registration number, name, and marks. Fine. Is it clear? So this entity set has two entities now. The first one is the registration number 209103. Let me first change this registration number, and 209104. Is it clear? So I can collect. तो हम उसको क्या कहते हैं? Entity set. And individual entry को हम क्या करें? Entities. ठीक है. Now there are some relationship between those entities. हो सकता है यहाँ पे एक और entity set हो, जैसे student है, यहाँ पे हो सकता है एक entity set of faculty. It may possible there is a relationship between these two entity sets. There is a relationship between these two entity sets. Okay, so in ER model we talk about the entities and we talk about the relationship between the entities. Okay, so we will cover this topic in detail, so don't worry about this, but this is the simple idea of that ER model, that it is a model which is used to perceive the real world objects in the form of the entities and the relationships. Now coming to the relational model, so relational model is what? In mathematics, a table is called as a relation. Okay, why we call it as a relation? Because अभी हमने एक entity set बनाया था जिसका नाम था student. Okay, this is the pictorial representation of that diagram. This is the registration number. I'm not writing any primary key and etc. here. I'm not including this one. We will cover that part in detail in ER diagram topic. So this is your marks. Okay, so this is a pictorial representation simply. Now I want to actually implement this one. So what I will do, I will create a table here. I will create a table here. I will write, okay, this is registration number. This is first column. The second column is name of the student, and the third column is marks. ठीक है. So मुझे थोड़ा सा ये आज पैड ऐसे ही काम कर रहा है, राइटिंग पैड. जस्ट अ मिनट. रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर, नेम एंड मार्क्स. आई थिंक नाउ इट इज रीडेबल. So मैंने simply क्या किया? I created a table which has three columns related to this registration number, name, and the marks. I know this registration number is unique for each and every student, and if you are a student, then you must have a registration number, so I can treat it as a key for my searching and the insertion. So this is my registration, which is I'm using for the searching and the insertion. I know there's a relationship between the name and the registration. There's a relationship between the marks and the registration number. If a registration number is given, you can identify or you can fetch the name, you can fetch the marks. So in mathematics we call it as a relation. Table को हम क्या कहते हैं? क्या कहते थे हम? Relation. So first you will draw or design your database by using the ER model. Try to understand. First you will design your database by using the ER model. There is the marker, this one. Okay, so first you will design it by using the ER model, then you will convert it into the relational model. So now I think you have understood what is relational model. Relational model is basically the collection of tables. It is collection of tables. It is a collection of tables to represent both data and the relationship among those data. Okay, each table has multiple columns and each column has a unique name. Fine. So first you will design your database by using the ER model, then you will convert it into the relational model. Again, there are some rules and the regulations or the concepts which you will follow, or the constraints you will fulfill to convert it into a relational model. ठीक है, जब आप एक ER बना लेंगे तो वहाँ पे कुछ set of rules है, according to that you can convert ER model into a relational model. It was a very simple example. We had only one entity set and there was a unique there was a column which has the feature unique and not null. So we just created a table, or we just mapped it on a table that has 3 columns. Okay, but there are some rules when you will create some relationship between the entity sets. Is it clear? Now, object-oriented data model, the object-oriented model can be seen as extending the ER model with the notions of encapsulations, methods, and the object identity. These are the properties which are always associated with your object-oriented concept. ठीक है, तो आपने oops पढ़ा है तो आपको पता होगा what is the meaning of the encapsulation, what is the meaning of the inheritance, methods, and the object identity. The next one is the object relational data models. It combines features of the object-oriented data model and relational data model. So when you will combine it, you will get a new model that is a object relational data model. Then the semi-structured data models. So again, you are here to store your data, but in the form of semi-structured. Your relational model is a structured data model. Your relational model is a structured data model, okay, because it is strictly structured. But there is a way to store the data in a semi-structured way, and for that purpose you use XML. Okay, so जब हम वेब प्रोग्रामिंग करते हैं तो हम वहाँ पे एक्सटेंसिबल मार्कअप लैंग्वेज सीखते हैं. So XML is used to define our on text. We can define our on text to store the data. If data set is not used, तो हम XML use ले लेते हैं. वहाँ पे हम हमारे कुछ text create कर सकते हैं. हम वहाँ पे डेटा को रिप्रेजेंट कर सकते हैं. फिर एक XML पार्सर होता है जिससे कि वो XML फाइल फाइनली कन्वर्ट होती है आपकी वर्ल्ड वाइड वेब फाइल में, है ना, या HTML फाइल में. आप इसको जनरली ऐसा समझ लें. ठीक है, so those who have done or those who have worked with the XML, they are familiar with this part, that how they can use XML to show or to display the data on the web page. Okay, and how they code it, how they can create the text. But that is a way to create or store the data in a semi-structured way. In a semi-structured way, so we call it as a semi-structured data models. Now coming to the database languages. So when we talk about the database languages, so we can broadly classify it into 2 parts: DDL and DML. Okay, data definition language and data manipulation language. So I think you have understood with the name. If you are talking about the design, the definition of the data means creation of the table. Okay, or let's suppose you are just simply alter your table, you are adding a column. Better
institute itself for all the for the work, na? Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. I think someone mic is on. Okay, coming to back. So database language, so we can broadly classify it into 2 parts: database definition language and database manipulation language. DML can be again classified or categorized into 2. Again, part 1 is the procedural and second one is your declarative. ठीक है, एक part आपका procedural हो जाएगा. Let me write it in a short form: procedural, and the second category is your declarative. Okay. So if you are talking about procedural, it means you are talking about the algebra, relational algebra, and declarative, it means you are talking about the relational calculus. First we will cover algebra and the calculus, then we will move on the SQL. Okay, so two broad categories, DDL and the DML. So DDL is used to specify the database schema. Schema means design. If you are writing a code which is related with the design of the database, it means this code is related to the data definition language. For example, you are writing a query to create a table. For example, you have written here create table account, where two columns are there, account number and the balance. What is the type of the account number? That is the character. What is the data type of the balance? That is an integer. What is the length of this account number? Is 10, means 10 length का ठीक है आप account number ले सकते हैं. What is the name of the table? That is account. So what you are doing here, you are dealing with the design of your database. So this is your DDL statement. Create as a DDL statement. Then what is data manipulation language? Means once you have created a table, what you can do? You can retrieve the data from the table. You can insert the data in the table. You can delete the data from the table. You can modify the data which is stored in the table. Okay, so just database means we are talking about the table here in the relational model. So retrieval, insertion, deletion, and modification. So the queries which are related to these operations are included in the data manipulation. Okay, then data manipulation can be categorized into procedural, as I told you, procedural and declarative. Okay, so procedural में तो आप क्या पढ़ेंगे? Algebra, relational algebra, and declarative में आप क्या पढ़ेंगे? Relational calculus. ठीक है, but दोनों languages में difference क्या है? If I talk about the procedural DML, okay, so I know why I'm writing a particular query, because I want to get the data. Okay, so procedural का मतलब क्या? What data are needed? I know. काम तो सारा इसी के लिए हो रहा है. What data are needed, but how to get those data? It will be also described there. It will be also specified there. If in your query what data is required and how that data will be fetched, both are explained or described or given, then you will say, okay, this is procedural DML. So in algebra, you write both, means what data and how you will get that data. Okay, declarative DML, this is non-procedural DML. So declarative में आपको क्या बताना है? What data is required. You will not specify how that data will be required. प्रोसीजर नहीं बताना आपको, प्रोसेस नहीं बताना, हाउ दैट डेटा विल बी रिक्वायर्ड. मतलब आप मान लीजिए आपको देयर आर टू टेबल्स. फॉर एग्जांपल, दिस इज द टेबल T1, दिस इज द टेबल T2. ठीक है, फॉर एग्जांपल यू नीड आउटपुट which will be fetched from T1 and T2 both. With the combination of T1 and T2, you will get your final output. So you know what data is required. But if you are specifying, okay, this table, take this table and this table and perform this particular operation, there are number of the operations for combination of the tables. We will go through each and every one when we will talk about the algebra, calculus and SQL. Okay, so अभी हम इतना समझ लेते हैं कि ठीक है यार, दो टेबल है, T1 T2 है, दोनों को कंबाइन करना है. कंबाइन करने का कोई प्रोसेस होगा, ज्वाइन होगा, यूनियन होगा, इंटरसेक्शन होगा. देयर आर डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ द ऑपरेशन, बट आई एम स्पेसिफाइंग हियर. Then it means I am talking about the procedural DML. But if I am talking about only the output, okay, I need this output from table T1 and T2. Whatever the process you want to apply, this is up to you. You want to join the table, you want to apply the union, you want to apply the intersection, whatever. So that is your declarative DML, non-procedural DML. Clear? Now coming to database users and the administrators. So as we talked about the users, जैसे मैंने कहा कि यार यू आर गोइंग टू अ बैंक फॉर डिपॉजिटिंग योर अमाउंट. ठीक है, तो आप क्या कर रहे हैं वहां पे? आप तो पैसा जमा कराने के लिए बैंक में चले गए. बैंक में कौन है? क्लर्क बैठा है. क्या उसको आइडिया है कि एप्लीकेशन प्रोग्राम क्या होता है? इफ ही इज नॉट अ टेक्नोक्रेट, मतलब उसने अगर बीटेक नहीं किया है या BCA नहीं किया है, कंप्यूटर साइंस साइड में कोई कोर्स नहीं किया है, वेयर द डेटाबेस वाज, है ना, in the curriculum. So he does not know about the application program. Even he does not know about the queries. He only know about what? Okay, there is a user interface, there is a form. He knows only one thing. Okay guys, there is a form. Okay, वहाँ पे कुछ labels है यहाँ पे, like account number, there is a text box, there is a name, there is again text box, there is amount, there is again a text box, and there is a button that is submit. वो क्या करेगा, आपकी एंट्रीज करेगा, सबमिट बटन को क्लिक करेगा और डेटा इंसर्ट हो जाएगा. सो वी कॉल सच टाइप ऑफ द यूजर्स एज अ unsophisticated user, naive user, those who are not technically sound. ठीक है. Then coming to the computer professionals, those who can write the application program. So naive users are interacting with the database by using application programs. Okay, so definitely there are some technocrats, those who can write these application programs for these naive users. Okay, but these application programs are again using some tools to develop user interfaces. Okay, interfaces. So they are not interacting with the database simply just sending a query, database query language. They are not using that. They are not writing SQL. They are not working with the NoSQL. Okay, they have created an application program by using some tools. They have created an interface with the database. Okay, so they are, you can say that, okay, they are simply a front-end developers. Now the people who actually can write the queries, okay, means they can interact with the database without writing the program. They know how to write a query. They know how to write a SQL query. So they submit each query to a query processor. Okay, so that query processor breaks down DML statement into the instructions and it transfers it to the storage manager. Simply, मतलब आपने query दी तो जैसे program में होता ना, that will be compiled and it will be given to the execution engine. That execution engine will check the syntax and it will execute that. Is it clear? So three categories: naive users, application programmers, and the sophisticated users, those who know how to deal with how to write the queries. Administrator is one who is the sophisticated, who knows how to write the queries, who know how to design the database, but there is only one person who has such control over the system. That person will be called as a database administrator. That person will be called as a database administrator. What responsibilities of the database administrator are? He will be solely responsible for the design of the database. That's why I have written here schema definition. So he will be solely responsible for that. He will be responsible for storage structure and access method definitions. He will be responsible for schema and physical organization modifications. He will be responsible for granting of authorization for the data access. So your database administrator will decide the roles of each and every actor who is in that particular system. ठीक है, कौन व्यू कर सकता है, कौन एडिट कर सकता है, कौन इंसर्ट कर सकता है, कौन नई टेबल क्रिएट कर सकता है, कौन डिलीट कर सकता है. So the roles will be, means the authorization will be granted by the database administrator, and the routine maintenance of the database is the responsibility of the database administrator. So he is the backend engineer simply. Okay, who is dealing with the database is the backend engineer. So the success of that particular software or the website which is using the databases totally on the shoulder of this database administrator. Just think about the Amazon which has a very large database. ठीक है, उसका डेटा एनालिटिक्स के काम भी आ रहा है, मार्केटिंग के काम भी आ रहा है, अदर कंपनीज भी अपना रेवेन्यू इंक्रीज करने के लिए उसके डेटा को काम में ले रही है, बट दे आर स्टोरिंग देयर डेटा. देयर इज अ डेटाबेस एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर. ठीक है, सो जस्ट थिंक अबाउट दिस वन. द फ्रंट एंड इज नॉट वेरी मच इंपॉर्टेंट हियर. The data is important. So the success of this whole website is on the shoulder of that database administrators who are working on this database, those who are solely responsible for the maintenance of that database. Okay. So this is already 10:30. So now you have understood what types of the database users, administrators. Okay, so this is database system structure. I would like to cover it in the next lecture. So actually when we talk about the database system structure, you can see that database is what? You are just simply storing your data on the disk storage. इसको simple words में आप समझे, हम next term पे इसको explain करेंगे. तो database क्या है? Database मतलब storage पे जाके data store है. और यहाँ पे कौन है, आपके यूजर्स है, जिसमें आपके यूजर्स भी आ गए और आपका एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर भी आ गया। ठीक है, वो क्या कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पे डेटा को स्टोर कर रहे हैं या डेटाबेस को डिजाइन कर रहे हैं। सो दे आर जस्ट डूइंग इट वन। सो हाउ दे विल इंटरेक्ट विद दिस वन, how they will interact with this database. Okay, so there are two intermediate layers in between that, or you can say there are two between modules or the components of the database system structure. One is the query processor and second one is the storage manager. So we will go through the query processor and the storage manager in the next lecture. Okay, we have covered the types of the users, we know what is the database, we know the data dictionary indices. Now in the next lecture we will cover what is query processor, what is the responsibility of this query processor, what is storage manager. Again, there are 4 modules in the storage manager. So what are the responsibilities of these 4 modules. Then we will start ER model. Okay, so fine.